Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 13th of February 2023. These are the stories that we will be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the details as far as the earthquake that hit Syria and Turkey is concerned. The number of casualties is increasing by the day. For the current time being, as far as the details that we have gotten hold of, these casualties have topped 36,000, and of course the majority of these casualties come from Turkey, but there is a sizable number of casualties from Syria as well. Aid is coming to both the countries, whereas as far as Syria is concerned, there are a lot of question marks from the people over there as to the timely arrival of the aid to the Syrian people is concerned. There are also a lot of stories, heartwarming stories of those children, of those people who've been taken out of the rubble after a couple of days, even after 1 week. This is going to be our first story, the updates as far as the earthquake in Turkey, Syria, and the rescue and relief operation that is going on in both of these countries is concerned. Our second story concerns Zia Mohyeddin Saab, a thespian and orator, a legend to say the least, has passed away. He was 91 years of age. He leaves behind a legacy as far as his work is concerned. There hasn't been an orator like him since he took over, and there won't be one afterwards. The fact remains that he has not only made a mark inside of Pakistan and the subcontinent, but also across the world. He has also been part of important Hollywood films like you're seeing a little scene of on the sides. But we will be discussing more details on his life as an orator, on his life as an actor, on his life as being part of theatre and as part of NEPA as well, of which he was associated till his last days. He leaves behind a whole work that will be difficult to follow. Nevertheless, he does leave behind a lot of work that we need to listen to and understand in order to become a better cultural orator, in order to become a better thespian like himself. This is going to be our second segment. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns a ceremony to commemorate 50 years of unsung heroes of democracy that was held at the Parliament House in Islamabad. Today, the ceremony was attended by prominent political leaders, including Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, Speaker National Assembly, and Senator Mia Raza Rabbani. Unsung heroes of democracy is an important aspect to highlight those people who have laid down their lives, who have worked their whole lives as well for democracy to be upheld in a country like Pakistan. Then finally, we'll be talking about the polio vaccination campaign that has begun today in 39 districts to vaccinate more than 6 million children under the age of 5. This is happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well as in Balochistan. Important thing to do in the wake of the statistics that have arrived as far as the number of polio samples that have come positive from these promises. We'll come to details, but after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and to discuss the updates as far as the earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria, and of course the rescue and relief operations that are going on with Pakistan on the forefront, we've been joined by Nasir Ali Khan Saab. He's a former ambassador. Nasir Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Nasir Saab, when it comes to the aid as far as or the rescue and relief operations when it comes to Turkey and Syria, how important is this aid? How important is that the shelter and the relief goods arrive in time, specifically when it comes to countries or areas such as those in Syria?
Well, as far as Turkey is concerned, even there are some major issues. There are more than 900,000 people that need hot meals every day, and millions are homeless, and the weather is very, very cold, so they need shelter as well. But as days go by, the efforts have improved. Now, as far as Syria is concerned, it is a much more unfortunate situation because the majority of the devastation was caused in areas which were controlled by the rebels. Now, unfortunately, right now there are more than 4,500 deaths in that area. Although in the government-controlled, Bashar al-Assad controlled area also, there are a few deaths, something like 1,400. But unfortunately, there is some politics being played here. Initially, there was hardly any help getting to these people. Now the United States has asked the Security Council to allow more border crossings to open and more assistance to go, especially through Turkey. But unfortunately, so far, Russia was resisting this move. I'm very hopeful that aid will start going through in full scale. Another very unfortunate thing that I heard was that the white helmets have said that our efforts have been as much as we could do, and we have stopped our rescue operations because now it's been about 7 days.
But Ambassador Saab, when it comes to the rescue and relief operations after a dastardly earthquake like this one, what more, in your point of view, needs to be done? As you yourself said, that 900,000 plus people need warm food and water each day for their meals. They need shelter, they need warm clothing, and of course there is sub-zero temperatures in these areas that have been affected by the floods. Now that there is some reduction as far as this politicking specifically concerning Syria is concerned, what more, in your point of view, should be done? What should be the role of the United Nations? What should be the role of other important organizations like the OIC, like the SCO?
The WHO is absolutely ready to move in to assist, but unfortunately they have not had full access in the area right now. The hospitals that existed in the rebel-controlled areas, only 51% of them were working under normal circumstances before the earthquake. So after the earthquake, there is a great shortage of all kinds of personnel as well as equipment. And so, it is a dire situation over there. Apart from this, of course, they need shelter. That is going to cause disease and further deaths and things like that. So it is a situation where the world, the international community has to forget about the causes and the problems that the traditional conflict is causing. Everybody has to get together to make a concerted effort, both in Turkey, but more than anything in the northern parts of Syria, the rebel-controlled parts of Syria.
Also, sir, when it comes to the rescue and relief operations or the aid, Pakistan has been on the forefront, whether it be concerning Turkey or whether it be concerning Syria. I think you must have seen our Prime Minister who visited the embassy of Turkey right now, a couple of moments back, and we showed the images live. And he, of course, condoled with the ambassador of Turkey in Pakistan and said that they will always remain side by side with their Turkish brethren. How important is this help by countries such as Pakistan, by other brotherly countries towards Turkey, towards Syria, in your point of view?
Absolutely. When in 2005 we had our earthquake, I think Turkey was at the forefront of the assistance efforts. But we do have to be a little careful in the sense that high-level officials ought not to go to Turkey at this time, because then they will be faced with an additional task of welcoming and giving protocol to these people. But several plane loads of equipment from Pakistan have already left. And I think there are, from the NDMA, there are health sector workers who are trained in disaster relief, and they will all be going there very, very soon. There are already, you must have seen on television, our rescue teams, which were involved in rescuing people within Turkey.
And finally, Ambassador Saab, how much of hope does it give to the people when they see people being rescued from the rubble 1 week after the earthquake, 96 hours after the earthquake? You must have shared the stories and watched the stories yourself on social media of children, of adults who were brought out of the rubble after so many days and still they remain unscathed. Does that give hope for more survivors maybe in the days to come, or do you feel, as Martin Griffiths says, that the phase of rescue has ended?
Yes, unfortunately, I think it's very, very rare that you will find any more people being rescued. These people who were there for about 7 days or so, definitely had some access to water or to some liquid nourishment, because a human being cannot survive for 8 or 9 days without water. They can survive for months without food. So those pockets where these people may be stuck and they may be having access to some water, a few people might still end up missing. But by and large, I think now the rescue efforts will be coming to an end.
All right. So let's hope, Ambassador Saab, that in the days to come, in the weeks to come, that Turkey, Syria, and the world will assist these two countries in order to bring help to as many people as possible. And it's going to be a very long run ahead, as much as it is for our people who have survived the floods. And the help is still going on for them, and I think the help will also continue to go on for those people. All we hope is that the world body stays as one as far as helping those in need. Thank you so very much, Ambassador Saab, to have joined us, to have talked to us. That was Ambassador Nasir Ali Khan Saab talking to us about the updates as far as this rescue operation that is going on after the earthquake that struck Syria as well as Turkey. The latest updates talk about more than 36,000 casualties. Let's come to our second segment. It's a sad news today because of the fact that we've lost a master orator, a thespian, also one of the biggest broadcasters that emanated from Pakistan, an actor himself, an orator, Mr. Zia Mohyeddin. He was 91 years of age. More in the following report.
Internationally renowned actor, producer, director and TV broadcaster Zia Mohyeddin has passed away in Karachi. Born on 20th of June 1931, Zia Mohyeddin is considered a legend when it comes to broadcasting, poetry and prose recitation, acting and theatre direction. Zia Mohyeddin was also a chairman of the National Academy of Performing Arts, and his academy has been successfully staging plays and producing music concerts. Once the spearhead and later the president of NAPA in Karachi, he mentored hundreds of students now working in TV production. He appeared on both Pakistani cinema and television, as well as on British cinema and television throughout his career.
दर्द मिन्नत कशे दवा न हुआ, मैं न अच्छा हुआ, बुरा न हुआ, जमा करते हो क्यों रकीबों को, एक तमाशा हुआ, गिला न हुआ, है खबर गर्म उनके आने की, आज ही घर में बोरिया न हुआ, जान दी हुई उसी की थी, हक तो ये है कि हक अदा न हुआ। कुछ तो पढ़िए कि लोग कहते हैं आज गालिब गजल सरा न हुआ।
Zia Mohyeddin was also the first Pakistani ever to work in Hollywood. Some of his most memorable performances include The Lawrence of Arabia with director David Lean, followed by Behold the Pale Horse in 1964 with director Fred Zinnemann, and later Immaculate Conception in 1992 with director Jamil Dehlavi. Zia Mohyeddin was awarded Hilal-e-Imtiaz, the second highest civilian honour in the country, in 2012 for his contribution in the field of art. He has also authored 3 books, namely A Carrot is a Carrot, Theatrics, and The God of My Idolatry, Memories and Reflections. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif expressed grief and emphasised that Mohyeddin's art was one of its kind, and his unique style was admired not just in Pakistan but across the world. The death of Zia Mohyeddin marks end of an era, as his death sent shockwaves across the country.
Rafay Mehmood, cultural commentator, joins us online. Rafay, thank you very much to have joined us. Rafay, it's indeed a very sad loss to hearing about Zia Mohyeddin Saab. When you just name, when somebody just utters the name Zia Mohyeddin, so much information, such a lot of detail comes as far as the whole era of broadcasting, oration, acting or theatre is concerned. What kind of legacy does he leave behind?
I think, Omar, the most important part of Zia Saab's legacy is the fact that as much as he hated the formula and he carved his own formula of popular entertainment, he ensured that his indifference from the mainstream, popular, flashy media actually turns into an academy, a place where he can teach students and create what he felt like the ideal artist was. That you and me and everyone who is an insider in the industry knew that while Zia Mohyeddin was known for his eloquence, his poise, his knowledge of literature, he was an incredibly disciplined person and very picky with projects. So I think where his oration, where his work in theater, both in Britain and in Pakistan, and later on his narrations, like you just played, his bits of Ghalib, Faiz, Ibn Insha, Mushtaq Yusufi, you name it, the list goes on and on and on. I think that's one part of it that people know, the obvious, the more visible part of it. But I think what people are not aware of is really that under his tutelage, now there are batches of performers in the industry who are, if not taking forward similar values, at least espousing to do so.
Rafay, after the passing away of Mr. Zia Mohyeddin, do you feel that NEPA has been rendered orphan, has been rendered without somebody who used to look after them, somebody who started that wonderful organization? And when you talk of all the batches of entertainers who have been trained by Zia Sahab, what should they move forward with? What are the basic principles that Zia Mohyeddin Sahab stood for that they should also stand for?
I think the biggest principle that Zia Sahab always stood for was commitment to the craft, and more importantly, no compromise on work ethics and principles. Like whenever I used to meet Zia Sahab and I used to ask him about directing actors and the society we are living in, he always had this one issue and one qualm, and where he would state that in Pakistan, actors believe that if someone is playing an addict on stage or a drunkard on stage, they have to get addicted and get drunk and then come on stage. And this was something that he feels that he had no issue with all these activities, but he had issues with people taking art for fun. Because he felt, and that is so true, that we are trying to make art in a society that is not very friendly of the arts. And arts themselves are not considered a mainstream profession around the world, like doctors, engineers, soldiers, chartered accountants. And yet he said that the only solution to all of it is to keep loving what you work, or keep loving your work and keep working for what you love. So as far as his legacy is concerned, I think these batches have to be incredibly disciplined. They have to be incredibly poised. And discipline doesn't mean waking up at 5 in the morning and going for a jog. It means that if you're looking at language, if you're incorporating a certain language in your script, then you better be as honest to the language as your mentor was. I mean, Zia Sahab was famously known that he would call up when interviews would show up. He was very picky about them. And then he would say that you either speak to me in English, ya aap mujhse Urdu mein baat kijiye. Please don't mix the two. So he was such a perfectionist in his own manner. But I think his legacy, more than that of perfection, is commitment to a certain standard and caliber of performance. Yes, some might say that the kind of theater he was producing was maybe elitist, was maybe understood by a certain clique of society, but these were the principles that he stood by. So I think the most important thing that his students will have to take forward is to stand by the craft, to work with the craft, and to be honest with their art and expression.
When you talk of oration, Rafay, one thing is very important that we do a lot in our normal day-to-day lives. We mix languages, and that is something that Zia Sahab hated. When you talk to him, as you yourself have said, if you mix two languages and you did not, talk to him in one language and mix the other, he was extremely angry about it. He said you need to respect a language. Do you feel our new generation has kind of lost that respect, A, for the language, B, for tradition?
I think
something that Zia Sahab stood for, in fact.
I think it's a bit of both. That some of it had to be eventually be the case. That not everyone can be fixated to a certain kind of a tradition. Like tradition or culture is not a monolith. It keeps on changing. But the question is, what sort of compromises or additions do you make to it? And even Zia Sahab, once we were having a conversation about Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, which he was directing in Karachi, and he had to explain to me something in Urdu. And he gave me an extended apology in English, and then he interjected in Urdu that, I'm not being just here. And that's why and then he quoted a Ghalib Shay to explain Waiting for Godot to me. But I think even Zia Saab had an idea, because if you ever frequented the National Academy of Performing Arts, his one problem that he always highlighted was that बच्चों को उर्दू पढ़नी नहीं आती और उर्दू बोलनी नहीं आती, and he was scared, and he feared that the language that they're reading is not Urdu, and the language that they're talking in is certainly not Urdu. And what was even more fearsome for him was that the students didn't know that. So I think this was a symptom that he was aware of, and that's why even at Napa, he would, and at some point him and even Rahat Kazmi, and to some extent Talat Hussain Saab and Khalid Saab as well, would give a primer in Urdu language to diploma students who were sometimes in their 20s, late teens, early 30s, just to tell them and explain to them the intricacies of enunciation, syntax, pronunciation. So I think that was an evil that he was aware of, and that was a part and parcel of his mission. And he was a living, walking, talking epitome of what he wanted to be conveyed as part of the tradition he stood by.
Now, the traditions that he stood by also included acting, also included writing. He wrote 3 books, whether it be A Carrot is a Carrot, Theatrics and the God of My Adulatory Memories, Reflections. He also acted in Lawrence of Arabia, one of the biggest films that Hollywood has come up with, and he was part of that and many other films as well. Jameel Dehelvi Saab's film as well. Here, his stint in Lollywood wasn't a huge success. I think he was maybe meant for oration, he was maybe meant for broadcast, maybe he was meant for, carving out a whole new generation of people from the literary world. Did he succeed in that, in your point of view?
I think, I would say that a part of it has to do with the media ecosystem in Pakistan, because here you had someone who had graduated from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, had made his West End debut back in the 60s. His debut show, Passage to India, ran for about 300 shows. And that's a big deal. And then there's someone who puts all of that back and comes to Pakistan that, I'll start my own talk show, and he goes on and on about it. The closest parallel that you often find, and it was interesting that I saw Zia Saab direct King Lear, and then Ian McKellen back in Hollywood act in King Lear, almost not the same age, but certainly a similar bracket. But it was also a part of it that in Pakistan, the media ecosystem was so fresh when he came back. All was so new that, Pakistan television was a space, and the literary circles were a space where someone as almost polymathic in his understanding of the arts, craft, society, and oration and expression would only fit in those circles. And to be honest with you, someone as committed to him, I don't think Zia Saab would have taken many offers from Pakistani media, whether it's film or television, because especially the private media, he had grown on to despise that media because of the almost crass use of Urdu language, and he had been very vocal about that. So I think it was a part and parcel of 2 things. Zia Saab's talent needed a bigger media ecosystem where someone of his caliber could breathe otherwise as well, although he did succeed in forming his own niche as an orator, as someone who would read Tahatul Lafz, and then as a hardcore teacher. But at the same time, I think it was also him being very picky, that if you look at Immaculate Conception, it's such a heartbreaking and it's such a jarring film, and the role he plays of a trans person in it. No one would have seen him, and no one would have known that him and Shabana Azmi actually worked in a film together. And then it was so jarring that I don't think he would have picked many roles that were offered to him, because the media ecosystem here would just not comply to his standards of art.
Well, Rafay, whether the media ecosystem at that time complied with his art, it remains a fact that his legacy, his legend is something that he has made by himself because of his talent, and that is something that will live on for generations and generations of artists and literary persons to emulate and to look upon as somebody who once lived and live to his maximum. Thank you so very much, Rafay Mehmood, cultural commentator, to have joined us and to have shared some of the life, some of the legacy of Zia Mohyeddin Saab, who's no longer with us. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Let's come with our last stories, ladies and gentlemen. The first is about Parliament paying tribute to unsung heroes of a democracy. A ceremony to commemorate the 50 years of unsung heroes of democracy in Pakistan was held in the Parliament House in Islamabad. It was attended by many important political leaders, including Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Saab, Senator Mia Razar Bani Saab, Speaker National Assembly Raja Parvez Ashraf Saab. The Speaker in a statement said that the unsung heroes of democracy in Pakistan are the backbone of our country's democratic movement. Their sacrifices and tireless efforts have laid the foundation for the democratic system that we enjoy today. That is extremely important. He also highlighted the importance of democracy, and for Pakistan, democracy is something that has been extremely important and will continue to be. So we need to highlight those who have worked for democracy in Pakistan. Final story, ladies and gentlemen, polio drive across 39 districts in the country that has begun today to vaccinate more than 6 million children under the age of 5. It has begun in 7 districts of southern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and also in Balochistan. And of course, security has been put at the right places with these polio teams so as to avoid any untoward incident. This has happened because of certain wild polio samples that have come positive. And of course, as Pakistan is endeavoring to make Pakistan polio free, that is the main aim of polio campaigns such as this one, to make Pakistan polio free so that all the samples that come within a year or so are no longer positive, and that Pakistan can finally heave a sigh of relief of being a country polio free. That is what we have been trying for some time, but nevertheless there are certain samples that come on and off positive, and that is why we need to do the needful. And the parents of all those children under the age of 5 also need to be very careful and cooperate with all the polio teams that come to them. It is for the benefit of their children, for the benefit of the future generations. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us here in Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.